So last week we cut down our folding knife collection to 10 to 11 knives. We're going to do the exact same thing this week, and we're going to talk about pocket knives specifically. My goal is to have a complete kind of spectrum of tools that I can access that kind of cover all my bases. So let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, we're going to start trimming this thing down right away, beginning with the Leatherman Free Series pocket knives and the T2. The T2 is not a tool that I could ever recommend to anyone because it does not come with a pocket clip. It's very expensive for what it is. And the tool set is just very mediocre, especially compared to the T4. So this is a tool that I'm definitely not going to keep in my collection. Now this particular one has been heavily modified. I've actually 3D printed a backspacer that gives me a spot for tweezers. Sorry, we'll get the focus. Tweezers, toothpick, pen, and believe it or not, that actually is designed to have another slot for the ferrocerium rod. It's not quite formed well enough for it to fit, but all in all, still really cool modification. Now this particular tool has been modified so heavily it doesn't have the warranty, but it is a really cool item that I can give away. So this is going to be the first one out. The second one is going to be the Leatherman Free K4. Now I have also modified this one as well. I have modified the Phillips like I did on the T2 so that it accepts the rebar bit exchanger. I have also attempted to fix the scissor. Now the scissor cuts well, not as well as I would have hoped, but it is now a precision scissor. So both of these were modified enough that these would not be covered in warranty, but they still work great. I got a ridiculous deal on the pair of them at one point, but the truth is I haven't really carried them because I feel like I have other options that are a little bit better. So both of these are actually going to be part of giveaways coming up, and I was going to potentially salvage it were it possible to fit a saw in that scissor slot, but unfortunately the saw does not fit. So that's a no and a no on the Leatherman K4. So those are out. The next one that we're going to remove is going to be the Kershaw Shuffle DIY. Now the Kershaw is a really cool pocketable tool that gives you a full-sized hex bit driver, which is surprisingly comfortable to use, by the way. It also stores 2 bits inside the handle with this really cool detent system, which I think is really well done in the frame. But I've thought a lot about it, and when we get to the utility knife section of these videos, we're going to cover the Milwaukee Fastback 6-in-1. And spoiler for that, that will be one of my utility knives for sure, like 100% chance. And it's just better, in my opinion, than this one because I can take the blade out and just go in places where this kind of tool would not be able to go. So this one is out as well. The other things is there's some tools that I've never shown or reviewed. So we're going to do some very brief looks at some of these, including the Leatherman Crater, and this is called the C33T. Now I have never ever used this tool. Like, it has literally sat in my box, and as you can see, it has developed surface rust very easily. And yeah, in case you were wondering, it does actually have a flipper tab that's in 2 components. So the flipper tab comes down, hits the blade, and launches it out. It is really unusual to do that. And it is a sub 3-inch blade, hollow grind, 420HC. It has a full 3-dimensional Phillips that is slip joint enabled, and a flathead as well. It's really quite unique. It even has on the back a carabiner, but the cool thing is this actually locks, and the way you unlock is you press it down and rotate it out. Now this was discontinued, I believe, and I got it when they were like 45–50% off from the last call, and they're really cool. So these will definitely be either a giveaway or sale in the near future when we figure out how we're going to do that. So this is definitely not one I would keep. It's a neat tool, but as you're going to see, I have better options. Now it starts getting a little harder. So the Boker tools. Let's talk about the Boker tools real quick. Don't worry, we're going to come back to the T4. The Boker Tech tools. Here's what's really interesting. I made a video recently about comparing these to the Rake multi-tool. What's funny about this is I critiqued the scissors in the Boker, but since then, the newer version of the Boker, the one with the emblem that is stamped into the handle, actually has the scissors reversed like they are in the Rake. And I've seen videos already shown me by friends that just like the Rake, the scissor does not move. So I would be tempted to see whether the scissor works better in the newer models, but neither one of these is going to actually make it into my final top 10. As cool as they are and as nice as they are, I haven't decided what I'm doing with them. I'll probably end up selling them, but neither one is going to make it. But that being said, the first one on the list of tools that will survive the cut and the cull is going to be the Rake LD42B. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. Number one, 12C27 blade, that huge scissor that performed really, really well, 13. It has a longer saw similar to the larger Victorinox tools. Yeah, it's really, really good. It even has an inline awl that's hidden underneath that scissor that is very, very long. I really, really like this tool. It also has a pocket clip, something that those tools simply don't have, even a glass breaker. This one is number one. So we're going to put that aside down here. Move all these up. And yeah, get those out of the way. We'll start our top 10 down at the bottom. How about that? Now, sorry about that. There's a lot on the table. Let's go back to the T4 for a second. I have critiqued the Free Series many times. I have modified almost every single one I have owned. But if there is one tool that is closest to being recommendable by me, it's probably going to be this one. And besides the fact that they can't seem to get their color right, because this is like some weird salmon color, it's a really good platform. It has actually a very good combination of tools. The blade is very, very usable. Its ergonomics are really good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, the other thing is, for a new user, the fact that your fingers never cross the path of the blade when you close it, yeah, I really like this tool. In fact, it's good enough to make it into my top 10. So that's going to be number 2. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of custom tools that I have modified and others have modified, starting with this one. This is a Victorinox Compact, which is not, abnormal, except that we have a Phillips edition, and not just any Phillips. I have salvaged a square Phillips from an older model. Now this one is cool. It actually has a split down the middle, and the reason this exists, this is really cool, is for opening cans. So sometimes cans used to not have a tab, so what you do is you'd slot that piece of steel on there, and you'd actually rotate it and twist the metal around the Phillips. That way you wouldn't cut your hands. So it's just an additional function. And the way this Phillips has been modified, it actually fits into the rebar holder that allows you to use, Leatherman bits. So this one will actually work as a T-handle for that multi-tool setup. It has the file on the back, so basically everything else that is in the the Compact. So there you go. We're calling this a Compact Tinker. I think that's generally how people refer to it. And so that is number 3. Now, I was lucky enough to find one of these used on eBay, I think, before they basically became impossible to find, in large part because modders like to take them apart for use of these implements in other tools. There are some items on here that are really quite good, like this this awl, which is very cool. It's not sharp, except on the point, but it's really good if you're actually stitching with something. So that is a neat implement. It also has a very nice small flathead. So there's a lot of good things on here. I'm not sure, and that's not my initials, by the way. I got this used. But I don't know if I probably won't be giving this away. This will probably end up going the way of being disassembled, and then yeah, it's probably going to end up getting cannibalized, but definitely not one of my top 10. Now, were it not for the fact that I have a custom version of this tool, I probably would include a Victorinox money clip in my top 10. I love this Victorinox. It's a Victorinox with a pocket clip, okay? It has a reasonable sized blade. It has a nail file. It has a big scissor. And these scissors are actually awesome. They're awesome scissors. They're not as big as the 91, but they are still more capable than the 58. So they're like this beautiful middle ground. And look at how thin that is. So thin. So thin. Very, very, very cool. Small enough to fit into a lot of wallets. Yeah, these are great. And in some ways, they might still make a top 10 list, even though I have a custom. So let's go ahead and talk about that custom in just a minute. So this was not made by me. This was a custom created by a friend on Instagram, Noel Coons. He has since kind of put that hobby on hold, but this one is special to me. I understand the story behind this texturing that he added to the scales. You know, it was his heart and soul kind of put into this one, and it has implements from not only the 58 millimeter, which is very cool, it even has a 2-position all from the 91. So it kind of offers a great complement to many multi-tools that I already have. It has the scissor when needed, and it's really cool. It actually has a one-handable Spyderco blade. And this blade is actually opposite the file. He was able to get that to fit, which is really just kind of amazing. So a lot of tools got sacrificed for this thing, and it is a thing of beauty. So 100% gonna remain in my top 10 pretty much for the foreseeable future. All right, we're moving along. We have 4 of 10. Let's go up to another big fan favorite, a recent addition by Victorinox. Now, as you can see, I've not used this all that much. I love it. I think it's a great tool. This is called the Farmer X. It is the 93 millimeter. It has a really nice beefy blade. It has that inline reamer that I just think is one of the best you can get. And it has the scissor, of course. So it has the saw and the scissor in the 93 millimeter Alox platform. It is beautiful. I got this because, in large part, because the prices were going up, but the additions that were allocated to the different makers, such as Knife Center and Smoky Mountain Knife Works, they remained low. In fact, they were cheaper than the base model version. So this is great. However, it is not going to make it into the top 10. So that's kind of funny. But good news for you guys, because this will probably go up for either giveaway or sale at a ridiculously discounted price. Because I don't mind, as long as I get a chance to play with them and use them for research purposes, that's great. So I don't need to make anything on them. The reason it's not making the list is because this one is. I like the scale tools. So for me, the 91 millimeter is ideal. And although the Farmer X is a good outdoorsman's tool, I think the 91 is better, because specifically it has a second blade, and that is a big deal in my opinion, especially since the steel is relatively soft and dulls easy. And not just that, but a small blade can do fine detail work a lot easier than the larger blade can. So having two, I think, really matters. Now this is the Fieldmaster, which is identical to the Huntsman, one of the most popular outdoorsman's tools, except that it has a Phillips. And I just feel like the Phillips makes this a more versatile tool, at least for me. Now, in the future, I plan on flattening out 2 of the edges of this Phillips so that it will then accept the Leatherman bit holder from the rebar, like I've shown with the Compact Tinker. But for now, this is great. and it works great. It has that pen, it has, in mine, it has the ferrocerium rod in the toothpick slot. Yeah, so it's an awesome thing, and I like that it has all those additional components. It's also, believe it or not, lighter, or, you know, is it lighter? I think it's lighter. Let's double check. $105. Okay, barely. It's basically the same weight, but you get a lot more tools with the, what do you call it? Fieldmaster. Whew, sorry, that was hard. Now, the other thing that's made me fall in love with it is this setup right here, which we've talked about recently with a dangler setup. This gives me practically my entire EDC in one. And I think that's a very cool thing to talk about. And sometimes I just don't want to think about it. And this together pretty much does it all. So there we go. So that is number 5. And this goes away over here. All right, so we got all these. Let's bring these all up here. All right, speaking about customs, we got a couple more to talk about, starting with this one. The reason I built this is at the time I was living near Philadelphia, and if you don't know this, Philadelphia has the most ridiculous, just archaic knife laws exist. I mean, literally, the knife blade in this Rambler is illegal. Okay, that's how stupid the laws are in Philadelphia, because there are no advocacy groups for knives. Now, you can carry it's funny because you can carry a firearm there, but legally, but you can't carry a knife. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, the point is I wanted a tool that I could carry that gave me all the functions of a multi-tool without a blade, or any blades, or any pointy objects for that matter. So theoretically, this could even go through TSA. So we have the Phillips layer, the scissor, we have the opener layers in the middle, which I did on purpose because I wanted it to hang, you know, not in a weird way. So that's kind of closer to the middle. And then of course we have the cyber tool layer dead center, and the purpose of that I think is obvious. Then we have the pliers. And then instead of a blade layer, what I figured out is if I use a double spacer, I can get the file and the scaler together. Now, what would you use this for? Actually, the reason I like this is if I have to grab something and push it into a small spot, it basically gives me reach. I can kind of take a wire or something else and push it into a small space. And that's kind of what it's for. I may actually modify it with kind of an opening, like a opening like they have in the Wenger style scaler, so that I can actually grab something and actually push it in. Anyway, it's just another tool that doesn't have any pointy edges. Even the back does not have the awl, it has the flathead. So there you go. So not really any pointy objects. No one's gonna hassle me about this one. So this is a cool tool. I may end up taking it apart at some point and redoing it, but for now it's going to be number 6 on the list. Now, number 7 on the list is another custom, but it's very, very simple. This is a jet setter, but with titanium scales that I bought off of AliExpress. And now it gives me a pen, which I love. I love the pen because I can just do that. And this is surprisingly comfortable and useful, especially because these are pressurized inserts, so they can write in all different types of directions, just like a Fisher Space Pen. Very compact, and once again, has no blades. So this is part of a pair of tools that I carry for flying on a plane and not having to worry about it, in theory. Now, anything can be taken away, but this definitely makes the list. I wish they made this, in fact, but unfortunately they don't. So, custom, but easy enough for most people to do. Okay, so the next one on the list is, well, we're not keeping this one. Let's just say this. It's got a saw and Phillips driver. I forget the name of it. I'll put it right here. But this is either going to get sold, it's going to get broken down to make modifications or something, but it's not a model that I think makes any sense. And if you're going to carry a Victorinox, generally speaking, if it doesn't have a scissor, it's kind of weird. Just kind of weird to me, because it's one of the best things that they make. That's out. Now, speaking of kind of a close, you know, to being included, this is the 85 millimeter. They call it the Evo grip. Now, we tested this recently because I was curious about these serrated scissors. Now, these are kind of the wang, they call them like the Wanger style scissors. And as you can see, they move as you press the button. Not ideal, but they do cut materials that the 91 millimeter does not. Like the, what is it called? The Dyneema line that we tested on the gauntlet. This also has a couple other unique features, such as a locking blade, which is neat. And instead of a secondary blade, it actually has a diamond file. Now, I haven't really used this tool that much, once again, because I have too many, but it's neat. I like it. I just don't think I'm going to personally ever carry it. If I wanted a locking blade, I probably carry something like the T4 here, right? So, yeah, I don't think it makes it as close as, you know, it is. It probably doesn't. The other thing, by the way, I want to point out that's so amazing that most people miss, this flathead actually has a little added bonus feature. If you look, there's actually some movement. Maybe you can see that with this flathead. And what's cool is there's a kind of an opening at the pivot. And in the backspacer, there's a little locking mechanism. So when you press with it, it actually can't close on you. Very cool, right? All those little features got packed in this Evo grip. And it's a good tool, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to make it into my top 10. Oh, that's a lot. Whew. All right, let's go back to the 58 millimeter for just a second, because I got a bunch of duplicates here. These are called the Sentinel, and they're basically the same thing as the Alox Classic, just worse, in my opinion. They have plain scales, which are a little bit more slippery, and instead of the file having the combination tool, and I can never figure out which one is which, it actually has one that's designed for nail care. The Alox Classic is far better. It actually has a flathead on the end, and this is also a two-dimensional Phillips. This is just a better tool. It's got better grip, and everything else is basically the same, except this tool is just better. What I wish they would do, though, if you've ever seen the Onyx Signature light, it actually has graduations on the back to measure depth. I really wish they would add that to the Alox Classic. That would be a really great touch. But that is definitely still something that's going to make it on my list, because it is the thinnest and possibly the lightest pair of scissors that you can find. And where I carry it is in my hat, right there. In fact, I took it out just for this video. Boom. Oh, but we're gonna leave it there, because guess what? Otherwise I won't remember that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7. But these, no. They just, mostly I have them because I was able to get like 3 or 4 of them for like 20 bucks on eBay, so that I could put them on all my other Wazoo caps. So I had backups, so I didn't have to keep moving them from place to place. And they can be modified to basically be the same as the Alox Classic, but no. Whoops, I'm sorry, I moved some stuff around. I actually have 8 pocket knives here, and though we now have 2 more spots. Now, I should have talked about this next one probably first, because if there is a single pocket knife that I could recommend and that I would keep over any of these, and I mean any of these, it would be this one right here. Now, maybe not in this exact style with the brass scales, but this exact model, and that is the Victorinox Manager. It needs absolutely no modification whatsoever, in my opinion. It is simply that good. It has no more or less than exactly the tools that I would use regularly, and probably, if I'm being honest, could possibly get away with this as my only EDC item, maybe. But no, really, it's that good. It has the pen slot, so you can write with it. It's not super thick, but the benefit over something like the Signature comes down to the incredible three-dimensional Phillips that it has inside. Not only does this get used on screws that, frankly, most multi-tools don't do well on. Like, if you compare, let me see, if you compare it to the Phillips on the T4, for instance, they're just completely different and just work on completely different screws. So they complement, this complements many multi-tools very, very, very well. And what's even more amazing to me is that even though it's so small, I've used it on number 2 screws and it still works. That's incredible. There's more benefits, of course. You saw how I was able to use it with the pen and it makes it comfortable in the hand. But there's another benefit too. You can actually use this piece with the rebar bit holder and use Leatherman bits. So you go on diagonally onto the rebar bit holder and you will have access to all of those bits as well. So it's kind of like, if I was going to recommend a tool for anyone, the Manager is it. You could probably get away with just this. I'm not even kidding. This plus a flashlight, like I've done here. Now, I did have a clip attached with this, so it was dangling like that. But yeah, the Manager probably would be a number 1. The last one on this list, the last one in my top 10, is not here. And it's not, part of it is that I haven't had a chance to do this modification yet. It's going to be a combination of 2 tools. It's going to be a combination of this brand new Victorinox Compact, which we're going to break down, and the Victorinox Deluxe Tinker. So the purpose will be to shrink down the Deluxe Tinker 1 more layer. So it'll become a 3-layer knife with a scissor layer, a blade layer, and a plier layer. And we're going to replace the hook with an awl, so we will have the Phillips and the awl on the back. And that's kind of like another really compact all-in-one EDC. And we're even going to add plus scales to it, potentially even titanium ones, so that we get everything we want. I may even spring for the ultra expensive plus scales that give me access to a pocket clip. So even though this isn't exactly the tool that we're talking about, it's good enough to at least visually represent the one that we're going to add as our 10th. Now, this is actually a Flytanium Cadet. Yeah, it just doesn't have a scissor. I mean, why would anyone carry a Victorinox without a scissor? It is beyond me. The Signature is excellent, absolutely excellent. But once again, it's just a little bit worse than that Manager. And in truth, it's really not that much different in width. Now, these brass scales are a lot thicker, but the it's just slightly worse, and it's just not worth it. And the Rambler is for the same reason. I mean, it's just so much better with that pen. I can't justify it. So there you go. There's our 10. We have our custom, just imagine, okay? The custom Deluxe Tinker. We have the Manager, the custom Jet Setter, the Alox Classic, my custom Cyber Tool, my custom 74mm, the Compact Tinker, the T4, the Rake LD42B, and then the last one on this list is actually going to be the Fieldmaster. So there you go. Thanks for watching this. Now, you should see the pile on my table right now. All of these are going to go somewhere, and I'm working on what I'm going to do with this. It's going to be a lot. So when I get there, and we have a couple more categories to go through, we will talk about it. But for now, this is just my process. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. These are my 10. They cover a variety of different purposes, can be put in a lot of different places, everywhere from my hat to my wallet to my pocket, you know, as a dedicated knife replacement, and so on. So there you go. These are my 10, and these are the ones I probably will be satisfied with for a very long time. Thanks again, and we'll talk again soon.